Okay, welcome everybody to our first delegate event of this election cycle. I have a poll up there, and how exciting. We have 100 people who have never done this before, and that is so awesome. So before we get started, I'm going to introduce a few people. We have Max Sims on here, is our vice chair, and Nikki Brammer is our education officer. Nikki's going to conduct the main portion here, and then Nikki, Mac, and I will take some questions at the end, and I'll also follow along in the chat if you have things that come up during Nikki's presentation. But welcome, and I'll pass it on over to Nikki.
Okay, well, welcome everybody. It's so great to have so many participants in this online training. Thanks for your willingness to be delegates this cycle. We actually have a ton of new delegates as well as old ones, so that's a great thing. I'm just going to jump into this, and I'm happy to share this information following this, so don't feel like you have to take all of the notes. We'll go ahead and send out the information in an email afterwards as well. If you do have questions, feel free to write those down in the chat, and we can have time for questions at the end. So we'll just go ahead and get started. So as a very basic, I'd love to begin by helping you frame your delegate service by understanding that this is for 2 complete years. So caucus night 2022 until caucus night 2024. I know that sometimes we focus a lot on the current but love to keep in 2023. We will have an organizing convention where we get to choose our party leadership. So that's kind of what happens in 2023. So as a very basic beginning, you're expected to know the state Republican Party platform and the county Republican Party platform. If you are not aware of what those are, what they say, there's a lot to them, so it's always good to read them. We will be out following this so that you have those hands. Another basic expectation is that you're going to talk to all of the candidates for each of the races, and we hope that you'll be fair to all of those candidates. Also, your caucus members who are not delegates, they might have insight, they might know candidates personally, they might have had experiences with certain candidates or certain issues that they feel strongly about. They may reach out to you because you represent them. And so we hope that you'll be open to those fellow caucus members if they do reach out to you. That's not to say that you have to do exactly what they want, but more voices contributing to all the information you're getting is always a good thing. And then finally, vote at the applicable convention. So we'll go ahead and move on to the next thing. That's just a really basic overview. So this year we are piloting a way to really lay out what the expectations are, what the guidelines are. So we're piloting this delegate agreement. At the end of your term, we will ask for feedback, how you felt about these points. So I hope that you are referring to them often and that you can talk to these points. Let us know if they were good or helpful. But first and foremost, as a delegate, the most important thing is that you provide accurate contact information, whether that's your email address, that's your phone number, your cell phone that we can contact you with, and your mailing address. I don't know how many of you have already received emails from any candidates. We're excited to get that information and on the new week, the emails and phone calls where those candidates are just begging to have your time and attention and help you to understand what their policy position is. Event that you change your cell phone or you move and you stay within your district. If you need to update your contact information, you will want to probably contact your pre-seat chair and your secretary. Those are the ones who can update that officially so that future candidates or future party business will go to those those new emails and addresses and phone numbers. Expect to be contacted and be responsive. Check your email and phones during campaign season. I've talked to some delegates and they actually create unique emails for political business so that it's easy to go into a specific email. If you do that, just make sure that you check it every day or every couple of days so that you're able to stay on top of what they're sending you, the information. You don't have to answer every phone call, but please check and see if candidates have left you a voicemail, or if there's text messages where you're being invited to events. Just do what you can. You will get a lot of information. Try to be responsive as you can. As part of the delegate agreement, attend many events that will be officially sponsored events by the Republican Party. We've tried to get some information out about the candidates. I will go over the specific dates and locations for that. But there's also events that are sponsored by community organizations, like school board positions, whether it's a state school board position or a local school board position. Those are often run by PTA groups or schools. So try to attend as many events as you can. There are oftentimes debates. I don't think we have a specific debate planned right now, but in the coming weeks, you may hear about some of those debates. All of these events are really set up to help you have contact and learn directly from the mouth of the candidate. So we hope that you'll find ways to attend as many as you can. Get to know other delegates. Want to find out, what are some of the delegates around you thinking? What are they learning? Diligently vet your candidates. So we're going to kick in on probably the most important part that we're on, becoming diligently vet candidates. Love to do something just to make this a little more right now. If you are able to write in the chat, if you look on your Zoom, scroll to where chat, and go ahead and write 1 or 2 questions that you feel would be great questions to maybe think about the specific offices, what kind of question you would ask somebody running for an attorney general position, a county attorney, somebody that's running for a county commissioner, maybe somebody running as a senator. Go ahead and write in the chat 1 or 2 questions, and we may share these with delegates in the future. As you are vetting candidates during this campaign season, one thing that I always just pay attention to the questions other people are asking as well. I oftentimes have my button issues that I'm really interested in learning about. But a lot of times in those circles where you might be at a meet the candidate event, you might be and they have phenomenal questions as well. So I learn a lot when other people ask questions, as long as I'm listening to the answers that are given to those questions. A lot of times I'll write down those questions so I can use those when I talk to other candidates as well. Another diligently vet candidates is to study their campaign websites. Candidates put a lot of work into letting people know who they are, putting information about their educational background, or where they've done community service. Those campaign websites or Facebook pages can really be a goldmine to help you understand who the candidates are and what their priorities will be moving forward. So that's a really great way to go about vetting candidates as well. Most important, but vote. Make sure that you know exactly what to be voting, which elections are up. Now, as a delegate, the most important vote that you will do is at the county convention. And as we've mentioned, county convention, and it's out in Eagle Mountain, it will continue to send that date right now that you will not be able to be present, please contact your precinct chair immediately to find somebody that can be an alternate for you so that they can do the voting there. Make sure that as a delegate, your duties as a delegate aren't necessarily to vote in the primary to represent your caucus, but absolutely vote in the primaries, absolutely vote in the generals. And then one thing that I'm not going to focus on right now, but I do want you to kind of have it in the back of your mind that we do, as delegates, you do party business. So at the county level and the state level, there will be opportunities to vote on changes to the party platform, changes to party bylaws. And so you will receive information on those kind of from our party leadership, and you'll want to study those. And if you have any questions, you can always precinct leadership to really understand what that kind of related to elections per se, but they are related to work that you'll do as a delegate to help govern our party business. Finally, obviously, the power of being in the Republican Party is that we pull our resources, we pull our networks, and we support those Republican candidates that we elect. So prior to the party or the primary in June, we don't necessarily take official positions on candidates because we're trying to learn about them all. But once there is an official Republican, support those candidates, and we hope that you will understand that as a delegate, that's part of your agreement and part of your power to help the Republican candidates get elected in the general election. Okay, if you have any questions about your duties and responsibilities as a delegate, know that your precinct chair, your vice chair, the secretary, those are some of the best resources to shoot them an email or a text, and they'll be able to answer those questions for you. Okay, this next part I want to talk is kind of the delegate as a leader, and this is really about going the extra mile as a delegate. This is not, you don't have to do all of these things, but during election season, if you feel strongly about a candidate that you've learned a lot about, you're welcome to host a cottage meeting. If you're not familiar with what a cottage meeting is, it's basically a meeting in your home. It's a meeting that you invite your caucus neighbors to, your neighborhood, whoever's in your circle of influence, to come and talk to a candidate, or if you're interested in inviting all of the candidates for position to host at your house and let your neighbors be able to talk to them. Hosting a cottage meeting is a great way to bring this political process to your own neighborhoods. Participate in Facebook groups when you can, and host a candidate sign. So again, this is going the extra mile. This is absolutely have to do, but if you feel strongly in the election season, during this full 2-year term of service, we hope that you will stay informed on public policy. We hope to get input to your elected leader. If there are some issues that are coming into focus in your counties or in your local area, in your legislative districts, as a delegate, I can tell you that your elected leaders will really listen to you a little bit more when you say, I'm a delegate. Can we talk about responsive study and books that are always out there? It's great to just continue learning and being curious of ways that we can continue. And actually, I want to come back for a minute before I go to this slide. Last night, I had an awesome opportunity. I got to go to a meeting that Supreme Court Justice Clarence Thomas was in Utah, and the Orrin Hatch Foundation puts on these events to try to teach us how to be more safe in our political discourse. And if there's anything that we should all try to be improving on, it's how can we be more with those around us. And it was interesting, you know, Justice Clarence Thomas is an originalist on the Supreme Court. And he really spoke to the fact that when we rely on our governing documents, so for him as a Supreme Court justice, it's the Constitution. For us as delegates, either at the state level or the county level, our governing documents are these party platforms. Our judgments become much easier when we refer back to those governing documents. We can ask specific questions, we can evaluate the current information in light of those, and then proceed that way. So I do want to put a lot of focus on using those official governing documents, our party platforms, because it helps us to have predictable results, you know, and maintain the same measurement stick for all of the candidates. So that's just a thought that I had. All right, moving on to be a leader. As a delegate, be a leader in your, you will have a different circle of influence who might not be in your legislative districts necessarily, but they might be in Utah. Have, you know, our professional networks, maybe you have churches or other service networks. Recognize that now that you are participating in a unique way as delegates, you'll have opportunities to share basic information, you know, nonpartisan information that you can share with people about voter registration dates. Those are coming up. March 31st is the deadline to vote or to register as a Republican or, you know, anything else. And then share with them the voting dates that are coming up as you get close. People will always have questions. Oh yeah, I know this is coming up. I see all these political signs. You might want to send an email or do a Facebook post to people. Hey, don't forget to vote, you know. So that's a great way to just share that basic information as a leader around you. And then another thing you can do where you will have had all these experiences to get up close and personal with the candidates for each of the offices on the ballots, you know, you'll be able to share your insight as a delegate. So I know people that, you know, they do one Facebook post right before ballots come out each year, and they say something like, you know, I've been following these issues and these candidates for the last few weeks. Interested, shoot me an email and I'll share what I've learned. Or they just go ahead and say in their Facebook post, you know, these are the people that I want to support, and they'll share with their personal networks who they're supporting and why. So find your comfort level, but you know, look at ways to share all this valuable information and the unique opportunities you've had to ask very direct questions and learn about all of the candidates on our ballots. All right, our current election cycle. Some of these key dates, if you are able to right now, I don't know if you keep calendars on your phones or your computer, but you may want to put these dates in right now, mark them off. County convention, if you're a county delegate, is on April 9th. It'll 8 a.m. If you are a state convention will be April 23rd, and that will be in Sandy at the Mountain America Center. Plan to be voting in the primary elections, which will be June 28th. That's where our Republican candidates will be chosen. And then also plan to vote in the general election November 8th. So these are all the elections for 2022. There will be more during your 2 years of service, but I want to make sure that we're all on the same page for those. Okay, the Utah County Republican Party has done a lot of work over the last few weeks to plan meet the candidate events. Now, if you are a new delegate, you might not have ever gone to a meet the candidate event, but essentially at each of these events, all of the county-wide candidates will appear there. They'll have a booth and you'll be able to walk up kind of open house style and walk up and hear the candidates speaking to a group of people. You can wait, you can ask your specific questions. It's a really open format. Those time periods are usually two-hour blocks. You may stay the entire 2 hours, or you may only have to be there 45 minutes. It's really up to you and how many people you want to be speaking to at each. So the first Meet the Candidate event will be next Saturday, March from 10 a.m. to noon at Spanish Fork High School. The second one will be Thursday, March 24th in the evening, 7 to 9 p.m. at the Linden Community Center. And the last one will be Tuesday, March 29th, 6:30 to 8:30 p.m. at Willow Creek Middle School. Now, outside of these official Meet the Candidate events, you will be invited by candidates to their own events. So we were asked not to schedule any official events during that last week leading up to the county convention, April 9th, so that candidates could be conducting their own events. A lot of times they've got plans that they would like to be doing. All right, so that actually concludes the quick and basic training for training. Would like to and
Perfect. Thank
Skylar,
you.
what do you think is the best?
Thank you, Nikki. You're still cutting out a little. But we can open it up for a couple questions.
Okay.
Mac, Nikki, and I are here. So if you use the raise hand feature on the Zoom, we can take a couple questions this afternoon and hopefully get you squared away.
Sure thing.
Hi, so my question is in regard to the amount of communication we'll be receiving. What is, sorry, this is my first time being a delegate. What is my level of responsibility for those communications? Like, I've gotten several that are just information like, hey, I exist, which is useful, so I can help find them. But then there are some that are like, barely even mention anything to say, take this survey. How much do I care to take the survey? Because the surveys, in my mind, I'm not sure what the surveys are for. Like, does anyone have any thoughts on this? I'm not sure what to do.
Yeah, Kyle, that is a great question. So I would say, so to begin with, you probably want to be aware of each of the races that you are going to be voting on. All right, did you say you're a county delegate for the first time? Yeah.
Stop muting myself. I'm just used to that for work. So I am a state delegate.
Okay, so you're a state delegate. Okay, so you'll want to know exactly what are the races that you'll be voting on. And then I would just recommend start figuring out, okay, who do I have to choose in the race for, Senate, for instance. As a state delegate, you'll be voting in that race where Mike Lee is running against Becky Edwards, Ali Isom, other state level candidates in the Republican convention. But start figuring out, okay, I need to figure out how I want to vote, and obviously study the information they're sending you. Once you've made a decision and been open to all of the candidates for a sufficient enough amount of time, then I think you're ready to move on to other information. If you feel like you gave them a fair shake and you don't really need to learn anything else, I think that's fine. Okay. You don't have to read every single thing. You don't have to take every single survey. Those surveys oftentimes are trying to help candidates, shape their policy positions. But it's really up to you. So great question. I would say as a general rule, give people a fair shake.
Yeah.
So let me quickly jump in on one part of that. I want to frame this in two different kinds of communication you're going to be getting. You're going to be getting communication from candidates. You're going to be getting communication from the county and the state party. Please make sure you pay particular attention to communication from the parties. We're going to be sending you information to make sure you can be effective as a delegate. How much you decide to engage with candidate communication is your choice. Obviously, anything you feel like you can do that helps you better be informed in making your choice is a good thing. Some of that may not be relevant to helping you make a choice, and it's your choice. certainly make sure you don't ignore the communication that comes from the party. So that's super important.
Yeah. Yeah.
Perfect.
Thank you. What do I do about the Nigerian prince though? That
he is not part of the party.
okay,
Yeah, you can
good
ignore him. Yeah.
He's in the same folder though.
Yeah. Good.
Thank you, Kyle. Before the next question, I see a lot of people asking where they can find a list of candidates. If you go to the Utah County Clerk's website, there's a sheet of all of the candidates. And since that's a high request, we will get that out to you as well from the party. So be looking for that on the Facebook page later today, and we'll get a list of candidates.
So real quick, also on that, at the state party level, we are working on putting together something that we had last time around where you can go in and see a candidate specific list for your precinct that you're part of. Look for that probably in the next few days. We're still working on gathering all the candidate information statewide so that that can be shown to you in a nice, concise manner. So you're only shown the races and candidates that pertain to you and not the whole, because the list on the county, yes, it has everything. There's lots of information there, and there's some races that don't specifically apply to you. So.
Okay, next question, Denise.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay, I was just wondering, how do we get a copy of this, the chat that has been, all the questions have been posted? Because there's some really great questions and I can't write them down fast enough. Can we get a copy of the chat or?
No, there's no way to copy the chat, but what we'll do is we'll create a question thread in the official Facebook group, and then people can ask their questions there on a thread, and that'll hopefully get everyone a good start on questions.
Okay, thank you.
You bet. Next, we have Angela.
Hi, how are you? Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
So my question is there going to be like an official training for like the chairs and vice chairs and secretaries that's separate than this, where we know like how to access the names and change names and things like that?
Yes.
We have nothing set up, but now that you asked that, that's a good idea. Especially
it's been a while. Yeah.
Sure. Yeah, we'll work on that. A chair training would be great. Great idea. Next, we have Kaylin Stanley.
Hi, I'm realizing now this might be a better question about, because I'm both the chair and the state delegate because I'm in a new neighborhood. But someone else asked this earlier and I thought it was a good question. Are we representing, or the people we're inviting to Facebook groups, the people we're talking to, is it just registered Republican voters?
In your role as a chair, yes, you would represent only Republican voters, but as a leader in your community, you're more than welcome to influence others.
Okay, thank you.
Jody Hassan.
I just have a quick question. I'm trying to understand, is there any way we can put an end to this whole Democrats registering as Republicans and then go to caucuses to get seat chairs? Can we do anything against that?
You know, that's a great question.
Yes.
We do have a closed caucus system, and so people have to register specifically as a Republican. I don't think that we want to be in the business of saying you're not a Republican, you can't register as a Republican. Like that's their choice. We do hopefully have people who have integrity and, you know, are able to say, I'm not a Republican, I'm going to go to a different political party's caucus meetings. But we're not necessarily kicking them out. I did hear from the state party credentials chair recently. She was saying that there is a way, if somebody is so blatant to be saying and posting pictures, I'm a Democrat and I registered and now I'm precinct chair. I do think that they're aware of at least one situation like that. But in general, you know, we hope that the neighborhood caucus system is able to weed out people that don't necessarily support the party. And then we take people wherever they are and we try to educate them in the platform and support our caucus members' decisions.
So I want to jump in real quick to give just a little bit of insight. So currently, Our state party bylaws currently allow someone to show up on caucus night and re-affiliate as a Republican. It's allowed. So from a rule standpoint, there's nothing we can do unless someone changes the bylaws and how we behave that way. Now, from a principle standpoint, 100% agree with you. It's very frustrating to us as party leadership that we see this happening, and we've seen lots of situations where we've seen people blatantly say they're going to do that. The challenge that there is, and the careful line we have to walk on that, is we're in a very interesting time in politics in this nation. I would say even a bit of a renaissance where things are going so badly in so many areas. We believe there's going to be a lot of people that are going to go, man, wow, this last choice I made was crap. I need to look for something better. There's going to be a migration into the Republican Party. And if we have too many guardrails up and too many gates up that people have to try and get past to feel like they can be part of the party, I think that's going to be the detriment to us. So at the same time where we would love to be able to block those that we know are purposely joining the party just to try and throw off our caucus convention system, we don't want to also be blocking people that genuinely want to come and join the Republican Party. And so it's a very difficult, dicey challenge for us to approach on how to strike that right balance, that we're welcoming and open arms to those that genuinely want to be part of us and want to see what the Republican Party brings differently, and are looking to potentially embrace our platform and values, versus those that are trying to do that with nefarious intent. So 100% agree. But it is a very tricky thing to find that right balance, and we're constantly looking at that and constantly thinking of how do we thread that needle properly, because I believe we're in a time right now that definitely more people are going to be reconsidering and taking a second look at the Republican Party to say, yeah, this last year and a half has been a dumpster fire. So,
and to finish on that, I've texted Mac many tweets and pictures, very upset about it. So it is on our radar, and we're always looking for ways to not allow that. So we'll definitely take that into consideration. Thank you, Jody. Aaron, again. Aaron Bolin.
Sorry, you weren't allowing me to unmute. There's different things that we can do in terms of, allowing people to register if they're unaffiliated, but maybe not to switch parties. But, that once again would have to be a bylaw change or state law change. And that has been looked into in the past. Anyway, my real question was to reiterate what some people in the chat are asking, and that is, what is the best way for people to update delegate contact information? Not all of that is complete, and some of it does need to be improved. To my knowledge, we would just tell Mac and yourself that we need a specific line item updated. Is there a generally viewable but not editable document that our delegates, we can have them double check and say, oh, you misspelled my email, or you got my number wrong, please update this. And then we can send you that update. And then the candidates can have better contact info. Yeah, I think a lot of people want that.
Let me take this, Skylar. So I'm the one that's primarily managing bringing together all this caucus result data. So there's two different pieces of this. And so I'm going to kind of give you a split answer. A, if it's updating information about you, contact information, phone number, email address, you can email vicechair@ucrp.org, and we can update your contact information. If there's problems with how your role is specified, like, oh, it shows I'm a county delegate, but I'm actually supposed to be a state delegate, we need to make sure that that is verified through the right channels, so that it's not just someone saying, hey, I'm going to tell you I got elected state delegate at caucus. We need that verified. We need to make sure that there are multiple people verifying, yes, this is in true the fact that what happened. So at that point, what you need to do is communicate that to your precinct chair or to your legislative district chair and have that come through that channel. That way, those people are validating those changes to us, and then they'll send it up to us. We do have that document that we can make you aware. I'll get a link to that document, put it in the chat here, so that you guys can all go check how your information is shown on our current official delegate list. Anything more, Skylar?
No, that's good. And we'll probably have a Google form next week to have ongoing changes submitted so that we can just have it in an orderly format before a convention. Okay, next, Helen.
Hi, yeah. So my question is kind of piggybacking on the one about how we know who we're supposed to be vetting and stuff. I know you're going to put a list together. Thank you. That will be very helpful. Until that list comes out, I just want to kind of understand the process a little bit. This is my first time doing this, and I'm a precinct chair, so I'm a state and county delegate in my precinct. With the state, am I just vetting those that are within my districts and that sort of thing, or do I also help vet those that are all across the state?
No, so you'll have just the people that your neighborhood will vote for in a normal primary or general election. And we have a small ballot for state. What area of the county do you live in?
I'm in Saratoga Springs.
Okay, so we do not have a Senate race there. So your only races are going to be District 4, Congressional District 4, and then State Senate.
Okay.
So
State House.
Two, and your House seat, excuse me. Yes, you have 3. Your local House, Utah House seat. Oh no, it's county. No, that'll be a county delegate, Mac.
Well, I'm a county delegate as
that's
well.
right. That's right. Sorry.
Yeah, so county, you'll have a lot. So we'll get you a list. But state, you're only going to have 2 races: Congressional District 4, and then U.S. Senate.
Okay. My other question is, what about state school board?
State school board, I'm trying to think if Cindy Davis goes all the way. We'll double check for you. Not everybody has that this year.
Oh, okay. Okay. Thank you.
Yeah. David, go ahead.
Yeah, I just, I kind of already asked my question in the chat, but I was just a little concerned about this enforced party loyalty provision. I was always taught to vote my conscience over party tag. The GOP is a big tent. Sometimes we elect candidates who are from a different part of the tent than I am, and I can't always conscientiously support what they do. So do I need to resign? Is this provision enforceable? What should I be doing about that?
Yeah, so a couple ways to go after that. Openly disparaging Republican candidates is definitely not allowed. This is the Republican Party. So you're not forced to vote anybody, but openly disparaging or open efforts to hurt the Republican nominee is going to be enforceable, and we try not to have that. As far as what you consider to be Republican or conservative, that's up to you and your precinct that elected you. And ultimately, we don't know how you vote. So the short answer to that is, openly undermining a candidate is not going to be tolerated, but you're more than welcome to have many different spectrums of the Republican Party.
Thanks for the clarification. I appreciate that a lot. Thank you.
You bet. Keith.
Yeah, so I'm a first-time delegate as well. I'd like to understand better the different offices the candidates are running for. Is there a central list somewhere so that I can just understand the scope and authority of each different office?
I'm trying to remember, Mac, if there is a description of each office.
There is.
Keith, did you say you were a county or a state delegate? Oh, you muted yourself. Hold on, let me allow you to unmute.
Yeah, I'm actually both.
Okay. Okay.
So we can send out in the follow-up documents, what are the specific races that county delegates generally vote on, as well as those specific races that state delegates vote on. The list is long, and they might not all be up for election during this election cycle. But for instance, as a county delegate, I'll just quickly run through them. The public offices that a county delegate would be voting on would be a county council member. So our county commissioners, county attorney, county clerk, county auditor, county sheriff, county assessor, county surveyor, although those aren't up this cycle, county treasurer, county recorder, state school boards, state senators, state representatives. And then during the next year, when we have our Utah County Republican Party organizing convention, that's where we vote on new Skylar Beltran or new Max Sims chairs and vice chairs. The county delegates would be the ones that are voting on who that county Republican Party leadership would be. Similarly, for those of you that are state delegates, in the organizing convention next year, you would be voting on the leaders of our state Republican Party. And then there's a solid list of who the state delegates vote on. I'll run through that really quick. Typically, those state delegates are voting for US Senate, the federal positions, when there's a presidential race, US House of Representatives, so who are congressmen. The state delegates would be voting for state governor and lieutenant governor. Again, not during this election necessarily, but they would be voting for state attorney general, state auditor, state treasurer. That state treasurer is on the ballot this time around. State school board members, state senators who live in multi-county districts, and state representatives who live in multi-county districts. Okay, we can put that together in a follow-up document to help you though.
That'd be really helpful.
Commissioner Gardner just put in the chat a YouTube video that explains what the clerk auditor does, what the commissioner does, what the sheriff does. So it's in the chat there, and I think that's the premise of your question. Okay, moving on to Annie. Annie Taylor. Okay, next, Clayton.
Yes, hi. I guess the thing that's it's a little discouraging is the whole ability to get on the ballot by petition instead of through the caucus process. Is there I mean, it feels like almost like we go through all this work on this side and somebody can just barge in with their petition signed and avoid the whole process. Is there something long term that's being looked at to make those two things work together? Or?
Yeah, that's a great question. Couple things on that. This vetting process is the perfect time to ask that question to your House rep. The only people who can overturn that is the state legislature, and all the House is up this year. So that is an awesome question, and it should be your first question if it's important to you, is would you support a repeal of signatures? And you're more than welcome to ask that, and believe me, they'll have an answer for you. So the only people who can do that's the state legislature. The party has spent hundreds of thousands of dollars in court trying to fight it, and you have leadership who totally supports the system, and we invest hundreds of hours into this system. So yes, I think it's a great question, and you should ask your House reps who are up for election this year whether they will vote to find a solution there.
Thank you.
Susan Price.
Thank you. This is my first time, so I have a huge learning curve. So what to expect on April 9th? Are we just going to be voting for one? Let's say there's 4 candidates. Do we vote for just one? Or obviously more than one candidate is on the primary. So do we vote? I just don't know what to expect on the 9th.
Totally. Mac is our election guru. I'm going to let Mac answer that.
Sure. So Per our party rules, everybody who gets elected or gets nominated has to do by at least a majority, or yeah, and in some cases, to get to be the sole nominee, they have to get 60% of a vote. So in the case of where we have, say, 4 candidates running for the same seat, we will have multiple rounds of elections. So you will go through a round, you'll vote for one person. And then if we don't hit a majority or a 60% threshold on that round, then the bottom vote getter will get eliminated and will repeat. We're currently looking into if it's financially feasible for us to use a electronic voting system that is a handheld kind of digital keypad that allows you to cast your vote electronically through a closed system. It's what many people call clickers. We think by doing that, that will speed up the ability for people to vote and to get our results quickly. We're currently investigating to find a system that we can do that affordably as a party, with, nearly what, 1,700 people coming to convention. So now there will be obviously multiple races. There are multiple countywide races that we'll need to do. There are some breakout races at county convention. We'll have some state Senate races where the Senate district is wholly within Utah County. Pretty much all of our state house races are wholly within the county, except for 66 at the bottom of the county. So we'll have breakouts for those races. And the one thing we haven't mentioned as well is we will also be holding endorsing votes for local school board races. And what that is even though local school board races are nonpartisan, as a central committee of the party, we looked at and decided that because there are more and more political things getting introduced into our education system, that we felt like it was appropriate for the county party to be able to have its voice heard in these elections. So what we're doing is we're looking to see what we can do as far as have endorsements for specific local school board candidates. Now, this doesn't mean these candidates will be shown as Republican on the ballot. It's not going to do anything as far as how the ballot shows to the general public. What it does allow us to do, though, is it does allow us to have engagement with those candidates, you as county delegates, to ask them how are they going to govern on a local school board that they're running for. And at county convention, we will have a breakout for each of those races that have contenders. If you're in one of those districts that has an active race going and there's multiple candidates that qualify to be considered, you'll have a vote to say who would you like to endorse, and it's your voice as a county delegate to do that. Now, one of the options is going to be a little different in that one because it's an endorsement, it's not a nomination, is one of the options you can always choose is do not endorse. You may find that the candidates that you're looking at, none of them kind of hit the standard you feel like is appropriate for the party to endorse them, to say this candidate is in line with our party values and party platform. And there will be a requirement there that they also hit a 60% threshold of the delegates voting to be able to get that endorsement. So it's not going to be a simple thing for them to get. We hope it carries value. We hope it helps communicate to the public at large, who we as a party see are aligning themselves and will exercise and govern in line with how the Republican Party sees its values. So that's something else to look forward to. We'll also be providing those lists of local school board candidates that you can reach out to and ask questions of as well.
Okay, Liz. Liz Carter.
Oh, hold on.
Okay, so am I there?
Yes,
yep.
We can hear you.
Okay, so Mac, thank you for that, for doing the school board endorsements. It's really important. I think that as a Republican Party, it is critical that we push our state legislators to have party declarations on the school board and mayoral levels. That's how the Democrats are playing and taking over, and we're putting our heads in the sand by really not doing this. So party affiliation matters. and I'm saying that because I, fled from a state where the Democrats took over because the GOP put their head in the sand. That being said, my question is, there's been some questions about people saying that voting conscious and so forth, and it was brought up. I think it's important to clarify that at the caucus, we are asking you to vote for a Republican. If you're a delegate, your job is to vote for the Republicans to see who's going to get on the ticket. If you can't do that as a delegate, I would think that the county would ask you to step down. Voting as a delegate versus voting on primary day or the election day is very different. And that needs to be clarified. So in my opinion, and I'd like some clarification, delegates, in my opinion, because you are a Republican delegate, for a Republican to be on the ticket of the GOP versus election day or, general election.
Yeah. Your only option at convention is a Republican. The question was in reference to the delegate agreement that you will support the Republican nominee after the primary, is what David was asking.
And just to clarify, there was a question that came up about, they asked, so I need to study up on every local school board candidate in the state. Just to clarify, so everybody knows, the same way as a delegate, you only vote in, say, the state house race that you live within. When it comes to these endorsing vote for local school board candidates, you will only be voting on the race that you live within. So everyone lives within a local school board district for that seat on that board. And so if you happen to live, if you're a county delegate, you happen to live within a local school board seat district that has an active race going, multiple candidates to be endorsing that. In fact, maybe even one. There will be a vote for you to be able to make your voice known for that. Just to be clear, there will only be one race that would be applicable to you for local school board races.
Perfect. Okay. Thanks, Mac. Matthew Graff.
Yep. I just have a quick question. I do like the ranked choice voting. I think it gives power to the smaller candidates because you don't pin the, oh, well, I don't want this person to win, so I'll vote this person instead. You get to choose your actual person and everyone wins. What's the future of ranked choice voting as far as farther down the road for the Republican Party? Are we doing that for convention? Are we doing that for everything else? Or is it just within our local precincts?
Yeah. The executive committee is the authority over convention voting, and the executive committee voted to do multiple round voting if there was 4 candidates or less this convention, and then we would do ranked choice if there was 5 candidates or more. And this decision was made prior to filing, and there is no race with 5 candidates this year. So we will actually be doing runoff elections this year, not ranked choice at convention. But to answer your question, we do use ranked choice a lot throughout the party. And precinct level, you can do it at caucus. We've done it for ledge chair elections. We've done it for state executive or state central committee elections. So we use it throughout the party, but this convention will be multiple rounds.
And really, as we discussed that, what we were really favoring is using the clickers, which have a low technical threshold for people to be able to use them effectively, versus if we would have had to decide to do ranked choice across the board, we likely would have had done paper ballots and had to gather all those in and being able to tally a large amount of paper ballots. And so as we kind of looked at it, our primary focus was looking at reliability and speed for, to respect your guys' time. And we felt like for a large convention like this, clickers was our primary avenue that we looked to accomplish that and still make sure we had good security and reliability.
And one thing with that, I think the main concern with the electronic clickers is security and reliability.
Sure.
If there can be a visual representation of, yes, I voted for this person, and it's like a light. So everyone hold up the light and you confirmed your choice. And visually you can see, yes, this is 300 people roughly.
Yeah.
And then does all the calculations itself.
Yeah. The other thing we're looking at in kind of criteria for a clicker system is one that can have an ID on the clicker and be able to report the results of all of the votes that were taken by clicker ID. So you're given a clicker, anonymously, that we don't know which clicker we're giving you, just one that qualifies for the districts you sit in. But then you can look at your own clicker number, write that down, and later on when we report the results of all of the elections, you can look up all your individual votes and verify that yes, your vote's recorded as you desired to vote for them. So that's one aspect of that we're looking at as well, because I'm 100% on board that I want to maximize security as much as possible.
Perfect. I think that's a great plan.
Perfect. Alexia.
I think most of my questions were already answered, but I did have one last one about the 3 meet the candidate nights. If they were county specific or county and open for all candidates.
Yeah, I'm okay with congressional candidates coming, yes.
Well, is it going to be focused more one or the other on a county specific delegate meet and greet versus a state candidates meet and greet?
Yeah, it'll be county delegate heavy for sure, but there is quite a few overlapping between the two.
We're making it available to whoever wants to come. From a candidate perspective, all candidates that are running are welcome to come to them. Obviously, we can't control who chooses to show up to which meet and greets. So I would expect you're going to see a combination of both county and statewide candidates showing up to some of these.
Okay.
Perfect. Danielle Martin.
Hi, thanks. I have a question about like the protocol for using public record, like voter registration information. Like at our caucus, the caucus chairperson had a list of everyone in our precinct and their email addresses. Is it allowed? Is it ethical for me to use that email address to contact the people in my precinct? Like as a delegate, or how do I get a hold of that list? Is it okay if I use that list?
So I would say, if you have a particular thing you're trying to do with, so there's a distinction between party officers and delegates and just general party members within your precinct. I would say certainly, and on the list we shared the link in the chat that is the delegate list for the county. One of the things that you guys kind of agreed to, and I hope maybe this wasn't clear, but we're gonna make it clear right now, that delegate list is published. There's state law that say we have to provide this information to the public, okay? The one aspect of it that we'll try and protect as much as we can, but it is a little difficult, is your email address. The rest, like your address, your phone number, state law says that is publicly available. You represent other people. So, and I would say definitely use that information to coordinate amongst those key people within your precinct. If you're wanting to communicate to your precinct at large, get a hold of us so we understand the context of what you're trying to communicate. I think we can facilitate that, but we do want to have a little bit of protection and deference to the privacy of our party members throughout the county, and not just let that get spread far and wide. It is information that honestly is not difficult to come by. If someone really wants to find that information, as a data geek myself, I know how to go find this stuff. So to kind of feel like, oh, we're like doing this massive violation of people's privacy because we have this information. Yeah, anybody can go to the state, and if you pay the money, you can get a copy of the statewide voter list. Now,
right,
that does not
I've been
include
contacted by all sorts of political groups and
sure
and candidates they just text me because they got my number from the voter registration.
Yeah. Now that state list does not have email addresses. The email addresses that we have on there come from party information that we merged into that data, so it's available caucus night, so party members can verify that we have the correct information for them. So that's the part that we try and be pretty protective of, is the email addresses, because that's, nobody likes spam. I hate spam.
Right.
We try to be very cognizant of that, but we try and strike the balance of making sure we can do effective, legitimate party business and also do as much as we can to protect the privacy of our party members.
I guess what I'm getting at is there were a lot of people at my caucus who were like, I didn't even know about this until 15 minutes ago because my neighbor told me. And it became clear, especially to our chair, that it was important for us to like increase participation in our specific precinct. And so is that a way, you know, can we send an email and say, hey, primary election is this week? Just
that's
like
great. Yeah.
Don't know.
Absolutely.
And then along those same lines with the information, the document that you shared with delegate information, mine was not on there. My whole, none of the delegates from my caucus were on there. I only knew about this meeting because I happened to look at the calendar on
your house number, house seat.
Or what's your precinct? Tell me what your precinct
I'm
is.
A301 and I didn't see it on there.
A301?
Is it Alpine or?
Oh, AL301?
What city are you in?
Yeah, what city do you live in?
Alpine 301.
Okay.
Yeah, there was some issues with 54. You'll be in the update today, so you'll be up there soon.
Okay, that will be great. Yeah, because I'm trying to get a hold of my other people and I don't know how.
Yeah, there's a couple districts with some issues and yours was one.
Okay.
Yeah, so AL301 is on the list with the link that I sent out. Do you realize that list is sorted by legislative district first and then precinct second? So like, for example, Alpine 301 is in LD's 54. So you have to scroll down the list until you get to the 54s before you see AL 301.
Oh, yep, you're right. Although some of my information is still missing. Okay. And then quickly, my last question is about those Meet the Candidate nights. Is there a published like schedule ahead of time of who is going to be there? I'm wondering if I go to the first one and meet all the candidates, is it that same group of people attending the next one or?
Yeah, so it's too big of a task for us to take RSVPs and things change. But everybody who's invited to the first is invited to all three. So to your point, if you hammer out everybody in your first one, then no, you wouldn't need to go to the others.
Okay.
And I would just add, Danielle, where we've tried to spread them out geographically, oftentimes those candidates that you know, are specific to North Utah County, if it's like a ledge district that's up near Alpine, for instance, like a House representative probably won't go down to the Spanish Fork one, but you would still have all of the county-wide candidates and probably the school board candidates. So if you ever have a question, you could shoot an email directly to a candidate and say, hey, are you going to be at this? You know, I'd like to talk to you. That's a great way to, you know, interact. But you don't have to go to all of them for sure.
One thing I want to add as well on these meet and greets, we're also looking to hold some debates to go along with them, at least two. Tentatively, we're talking about seeing if we can set up a commission debate on the first one coming up on what, the 19th, and then a county attorney debate on the 29th. That's very tentative. Don't hold me to it. We want to do that. We think having those additional conversations is good for you guys to hear stuff in a kind of a debate format. So that might be a reason why you'd want to go to additional meet and greets, is to maybe hit those aspects of them. So.
Okay. And then I also wanted to say a lot of people in the chat were asking, getting a hold of the questions that everyone had submitted earlier. I typed them all into a document and I'm putting the link in the chat right now.
Awesome. Thank you.
Awesome. Very helpful. Thank you. Annie Taylor. Annie Taylor.
Okay, I'm here.
Go ahead.
Hey, quick question. And this might have no different rules than kind of what we went over before, but I've also been hearing that some of the candidates themselves were putting on like social media stuff that they wanted Democrats to come in and register to get certain Republican people out of office, and those people were going to get delegate positions or whatever just to get like certain people out of office. Is there any recourse for that kind of stuff, or have you guys looked into that at all?
My answer to that is don't vote for those people, and vet your caucus attendees to not allow that to happen. It's a fine line between, you know, having a big tent and disallowing people. ultimately, I'd say you don't want the power of me and Mac or the next chair and the next vice chair to have that kind of authority to say who's Republican, who's not. It's ultimately up to this big group, this 1,430 people. You guys are the key holders to our party, and that's the way the party was designed, and that's the way it should be. So vetting is very important, and I've seen exactly what you're talking about, and my advice is let's not vote for people who encourage this kind of behavior.
Yeah, it felt pretty dirty.
Yeah, the other
trick.
thing that I would add into this as well, and I think this goes along with what Nikki said about you guys being kind of leaders in your community as delegates. You probably all saw that there wasn't, I would say, overwhelming participation of your neighbors coming out to caucus this time. The way that we battle against nefarious party changers trying to crash our party is we get more of our sane and good neighbors to come to caucus night and get them to come out and put up the very best of the neighborhood for delegates. And the more that we get good, solid, regular, everyday people to come to caucus, we dilute the ability of those crossers to do what they're trying to do, because there's just too many of, good Republicans showing up at caucus night. So not immediately, but next time around in a couple of years, be an advocate to encourage your neighbors to come to caucus night and to help them see the power of the caucus convention system and this very distributed voice. As a delegate pool, you're an army of voices that help sway policy in this state, and don't take that lightly. So that's what I would encourage you to do to help battle against that. Let's get more people involved in caucus, and that will just make the overall system better.
Is there a way? So I also have heard, and I'm new to this, so I'm just learning as I go. But I heard that if you can verify that certain people who are delegates kind of did it nefariously with the intent to register as a Republican, but are truly like liberal at heart. How do you present that? And how do you, is there a way to take that back, take away that person's delegate status and appoint someone else? I heard that there's a way, but I'm just curious, if we discover that, what do we do?
You can challenge a credential at convention. So, the credentials chair is who you would challenge. So if you find a specific case, send it to us as a challenge credential, and then we'll go through that process.
Okay.
Perfect. Rachel? Rachel Dunn? Okay.
Sorry, it wouldn't let me unmute.
Perfect. Go ahead.
So mine is related to a similar question as before, because when I was looking at the delegate list, everyone else from my precinct is listed, but I'm missing. What should I do to either be able to see that it updated with a later update, or take care of that?
So send a one-off situation like that to us. So chair at ucrp.org and vice chair at ucrp.org, and we'll take a look at your one-off situation.
Yeah, you can also get a hold of your caucus host, your precinct chair, if you know who your legislative district leadership is, because we'll have to confirm with them that this is truly the case. Do realize that the list isn't perfect yet. There's still some final things that are coming in to square away a few anomalies in the data. So you'll see it still change a bit over the next few days.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Wayne?
Yeah, so mine's kind of along the same lines. Several of the people in my precinct didn't show up on the voter rolls for our precinct, and they're also the ones that were elected that aren't showing up on the spreadsheet you gave us the link for. So I'm one of them, but our two, none of our state delegates are listed.
Okay. Let me give you a little history on this, because there was some stuff that happened at the state legislature that kind of affected who shows up on the list. So a number of years ago, the legislature introduced the ability for you to flag your voter registration as private. That sounded like a great idea that, oh, we can help people be private because, you know, like I mentioned earlier, these lists, anybody can go get them if they just pay the money to the lieutenant governor's office to get the voter list. The problem is that at that time, it also meant those voters didn't show up to the party, and the party had no way to know who was saying they're Republican. It makes it really difficult for us to operate as a party if we don't know who our members are. So then they made a tweak and they said, okay, well, we're going to have a normal status, a private status, and now a new status called withheld. Okay, this came into effect, I think, a couple of years ago. Well, what they did is all those that were private before, they got rolled over into the withheld category. The withheld category is supposed to be for people that have particular security concerns. You're a public official, you're a police officer. You may have a restraining order against someone. You may have, you know, active risk against you. So it's important that you can have additional privacy for where you live. And I don't disagree with that. I think that's good for those situations. The problem is they took this big bulk of people, which at the time was about 15% of the voter registrations across the state. All those got rolled over into the withheld status. And so currently, and then the private was a status that people could still say, I want to be private, which is fine. The difference is they made it so the privates are available to the parties, the withheld still are not. And we have still about 15% of our lists that are withheld, about 15% of our lists are private, and the rest are just normal listings. And this is information I got from our county clerk. So if your status as a voter is withheld, yeah, we will never see that record. The only way we know about you is when you provide that information, like you're elected to a position. Now, fortunately, our county clerk has been working with us. He's great. And so on the list of those that we have that have been elected, because we get your information, we just don't have your voter ID. He's actually been going back and providing the voter ID, so we have that key to relate to you. And just as another thing, as an elected person in the party, if you have particular security privacy concerns, running for a pseudo public office probably is not the best way to keep yourself really super private. Just, you know, you realize that being in this role, you're foregoing a little bit of your privacy. You now represent somebody else. So that's the story there. If you didn't see yourself on the roll, it's likely your voter registration is withheld. You may not even know it. You can contact the county clerk's office to verify what your voter status is and change it if you want.
Okay.
That's perfectly fine.
I will do that, but we also, all of us had provided our voter IDs and information on a sign-in sheet at the caucus. So you guys should have that.
Yeah, and most of the cases we do, we had some precincts when they reported their results. They didn't include the voter ID, even though we asked them to. It's a big problem. We had 355 different precincts across the county, all doing stuff. Everybody's volunteers. Not everything was done perfect, and so we're trying to just fill in the gaps where things weren't done right as well as we would have liked, and we're all doing our best to just try and help make it as good as possible. So.
Okay. All right. I will. That is good information to have. I'll pass that along to other people in our precinct. So
great. Thanks, Wayne.
Thanks.
Well, a couple more because we're a little over time here. WRUF1.
My name's Wendy. So I keep hearing vote your conscience as a delegate. And my concern with that is we're all Republican, and there might be 2 Republicans that are trying to battle it out for their position on the primary. And so my concern is if a delegate is just voting their conscience, they might not be representing me. And I have had that in the past where a delegate said that they would do whatever it took to get a specific candidate on the ballot. And I talked to him. I sent him an email and said, hey, I don't agree with this candidate. I don't agree with his morals and his values and the things that I've seen him do. So to say to a delegate, vote your conscience, I'm concerned about that, because shouldn't they be representing the group, like the whole precinct?
Yeah, so this is a challenge our own elected officials face every vote. So it's a fine line, and each individual delegate will have a different approach. But you know, our state legislatures, they have every vote. They're not going to make everybody happy, and it's impossible to have full consensus. So it's a fine balance between your personal opinion and the opinion of your precinct. Ultimately, you were elected to represent them in our republic system. And if they don't like what you're doing, they'll not vote for you next time. So it's a fine balance, and each individual delegate will take on that responsibility a little different.
We encourage every delegate to review and understand the party platform. The party platform is what's supposed to bring us together in a shared values. We encourage them to look at that and do their best to make their votes according to how candidates align with our platform. It's supposed to be what we agree on.
Yeah, I just kind of feel like that so like in the past, you know, I've participated in these caucuses and we have these delegates and like nobody's communicating and they're not like, I reached out and was like, hey, this is how I feel about this candidate or that candidate. But I just feel like people need to be reaching out to the people in their precinct too and saying, these are our options. These are the, you know, the information I have received, because I haven't received anything from a delegate ever on their vetting process and the information that they've received about delegates or, you know, candidates. And so for me, I feel like as a delegate, isn't that one of our responsibilities, is to share the information we're finding on these candidates with our precinct, and then having them say, well, I prefer this one or that one, and then kind of work together to align it with the platform and then vote.
Yeah, totally. Communication between your precinct and you is awesome. A lot of people will create a Facebook group for their precinct. Others will send monthly newsletter. All those are great. So totally create a communication chamber between you and your neighborhood. That's an awesome strategy.
Okay. I've already started the group.
Perfect. Go
Hey,
ahead.
Wendy, I just want to say there are basic expectations. Those are kind of in the delegate agreement. And then there's best practices and going the extra mile. To your point, I've seen a best practice by a precinct near me that they actually will send out an email to everybody in their precinct at election time, where they actually have each delegate in that precinct say who they're voting for in each particular race and just give a quick few sentences why. And the education level of all of those voters and delegates is really high. And that's obviously not something that we can replicate everywhere, but you know, definitely a best practice.
Thank you. I think I'll look into making that happen.
Awesome. Thank you. Cindy.
Hey, thanks.
Yeah, I'm just wondering if there's only one candidate for, say, a House seat or any kind of the races, do we still vote? Will that name still show up on our ballot at convention, and will they still be doing their speeches and such to get 60%? Or if there's only one Republican candidate filed, then is that the person who will go on the primary ballot?
We're MAC by law,
Yeah.
Matt, will
So
require the ballot.
yeah, so if there's only one qualified candidate going to convention, they will be the party nominee out of convention. Now, that doesn't mean they're going to be the only one on the ballot, because unfortunately SB 54 does allow for a signature route for candidates to get on the primary ballot as well, but they will be the only convention nominee. And they're basically elected by acclamation because there's no challenger. The one difference in that is when it comes to well, actually, there won't be a difference in that. Yeah, that's pretty much it.
Okay, and then I just want to say thank you for the training. This has been really great. I don't know where I needed this 20 years ago when I first started being a delegate. It was wonderful, so thank you.
Thanks, Cindy.
Awesome. Thank you, Cindy. Nicole and then Nathan, and then we'll wrap up. Go ahead, Nicole.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yep.
Yes.
Okay. I guess, so I went to the caucus, I don't know squat about politics. You know, I know my views, my foundations, and my beliefs. And I went to go support a friend who was running for precinct chair because I agree with her beliefs and that she would represent us. And when I got there, I had one of my best friends who I know is not only not a Republican, but actively fights against the Republican Party. And I know this because she talks up to me about it all the time. And her friends all showed up, and I was confused why she was there. And I asked, what are you doing here? You know, running. She said, I'm running for delegate. And I'm like, okay. So, you know, it took me a minute to say, are you running for Republican delegate? And she's like, yeah. I'm like, you're not a Republican. You know, I kind of called her out on it, but anyway, so we go into the caucus meeting, and what ended up happening is everybody there knows, I mean, this is our neighborhood, right? We're all very close. So we know that she's not there for the right reasons. So people kind of picked up on that, and there were open seats. And so she was trying to get some of those open seats that nobody was running for. And so that kind of forced me and my hand and some friends of other people who did not go to run that night, but had to step up and stop what was happening. And I guess what's frustrating to me is to know that she has been participating in women in politics social groups and training classes where they have been being trained by certain people who are running higher up in our for higher up office, who not only are not Republican but actively fight against it, who are running Republican, and they are training these women to go out and to get the open seats that nobody is because you go, and if nobody runs, right, there's open positions. So they're training them to go and get those open positions so that they can go vote for this other person, this woman who is definitely not for the values of the platform. And, you know, it's one thing to maybe kind of be in the middle. It's another thing to be actively working against that and then just in secrecy lying. And so I stood there and watched one of my best friends lie to my face as we asked her questions. And so it's really frustrating to me, you know, to have to see a character in this friend of mine that I didn't care for. But I'm wondering, you know, these open positions that they're being trained to go out and to find them and to seek out where there's open spots, that there is no Republican. And luckily in our meeting, we had people who were able to, you know, me and some friends, to say, okay, we're going to have to run so that we can stop this. But that's not, there's just some spots where there's just not enough people, or people who don't know that's going on, right? We knew, but who believed the lie, whatever. But if there's these open spots, is it possible for people like us to say, okay, nobody's going to run to fill the spot, so she's our only option? Can we choose to just say, hey, we would rather have nobody than you?
So first, we totally appreciate and thank you for stepping up to save us. You know, it's a service, and I appreciate it. To answer your question, yes. Obviously, we would not like to leave delegate holes, but there is a formal process for getting those filled. So the short answer is yes. Long answer is do exactly what you did and recruit your friends and bring them and show value and share your story. And ultimately, we'll have increased participation and competitive delegate seats to where we don't run into this situation. But awesome job by stepping up, and I hope that we make it worth it for you.
Yeah, and just to go along, Skylar, somehow we have got to convince the silent majority in our communities that things are not going to go the way they want if they are not willing to step in, but at least show up to a caucus meeting to vote for those people they know that share their values. That is the crux of the problem. Is there's too many people in our communities, in our neighborhoods, that just won't take the time to show up to a caucus meeting to make sure that those people who are representing them are actually share their values.
Yeah. Okay.
Perfect. Nathan.
Hello, can you hear me? All right.
Yes.
Thanks, Skylar. I just, a little more logistical question here. I'm trying to figure out, I downloaded your list you know, the list that someone posted the link to that has all the offices and who's running and so forth. I'm trying to Google how I know like what school board I get to vote for and what house I'm voting for, and I'm getting conflicting answers. Is there a way? I'm trying to figure out what races do I need to vet people for?
Yeah, there's two ways to check that. The county clerk's office, you can input your address and it will tell you, and also precinctportal.org, where we had the caucus locations, will also have a little bar with your specific seats based on your address. And if you're struggling to find either of those, just shoot us an email and we can get it for you.
Okay, thank you. I'll check it out.
And then last question, Alexia.
Yeah, I was just piggybacking off what Nicole said earlier, because I've heard this story just, I've lost count. And luckily we had people there, because I've been reading the comments in the chat. You know, people bring friends, recruitment, attendance is definitely the answer. But I've also heard stories where people just couldn't be there. And it was just a full takeover of that precinct. And my concern, and I think it was brought up earlier, was just the accountability, where if we don't have people there to call them out and vet them and bring the friends and have the visibility, you know, it's great looking forward, you know, to the next 2-4 years plus, but it would just be great for places where we know this has happened, that, you know, there is some sort of accountability, so that these people that obviously don't have platforms in best intention in vetting the right candidates in mind. So I just wish there was a process for accountability for people that would have gotten in, where we didn't have people like Nicole and whoever else have been able to stop it in the process.
Yeah, so, you know, we have secret ballot. So, you know, we won't ever necessarily know how these people voted. And, you know, the theory is that the majority of us will do the right thing and they won't have a platform, but ultimately it's a secret ballot. But attendance is the key, like you said. And now we have 2 years to try and ramp up and share these stories. And if you think that they try to infiltrate us for a Senate seat, you better believe they're going to do it for a presidential seat. So take the time. And as somebody said earlier, they're going to create the Facebook and a newsletter and reach out to their precinct. You get people engaged over the next 2 years, even if it's a quarterly check-in, they'll understand the value better, and then they might be willing to participate next time. But now that we have these stories and we can share them, it's very important that we work on attendance next time.
And can I just maybe close? I know Aaron has his hand up as another question, but I'd love to shut this down with kind of a parting word to say that we have a whole new group of delegates for the next 2 years. And I hope that we all are very aware that we create the environment and the culture of the Utah County Republican Party. If we want more people to come to caucus night, and if we want more people to feel like they can participate in the political process, you know, we set the tone for that by having civil conversations, making the Republican Party look like it's a great place to come, that we're respectful of people, and that we start filling that pipeline. A lot of times it takes personal invitations. So where you are all delegates, if you know people who are Republicans, but are maybe sitting on the sidelines because it's not a comfortable thing to jump into the political process, you know, if you invite them to town halls, or if you invite them to come with you to meet the candidate event, even though they're not delegates, you know, that helps them get their feet wet. And we just try to create that culture all the time, that we're kind people, we're good people, we're dedicated to listening and being respectful. And I think that we'll have more and more people come out every year. So hopefully we can all be dedicated to that.
Perfect. And I'll conclude for those that watch this later. The official Facebook group is 2022 UCRP County Delegates Official. If you search that on Facebook, we'll get you added and you'll get a lot more information there. And thank you all for spending your Saturday afternoon with us. And we will see you next Saturday at the candidate event.
Thanks, guys.